So the pet supermarket near my house has a sub-adult red knee, Mexican red knee tarantula. She's very pretty. Well, I don't know if it's a she or not, but they let me keep the exoskeleton. So I'm gonna practice doing a sex determination on a molt from an exoskeleton for a tarantula, and I will show you guys the process. So I have a nice little jar here of warm, soapy water because we need to take the exoskeleton, which is a perfect replica of the tarantula. It's their old skin. Look at the chelicerae and the teeth and its setae and everything. You can see the spinnerets. It's very cool. And you can also see if there is a sperm flap once you soften the skeleton. And so tarantulas actually float in water. If it's just the mold or not, tarantulas float, so you have to weigh it down. Nice and weighed down right here. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes, I'd say, so we are going to get this up and going. We're going to see if this is a bad boy or gal. Okay, so I got her out of the soapy water. It is very cool, as you can see. You can see all the legs. You can see the mouth parts really well, but because it's so small, the abdominal bit, because their abdomen doesn't actually have a protective skeleton over it, their abdomen is just soft tissue, and that's why when you set up a terrarium, you have to be very careful that you don't have places where they could easily fall and hurt themselves, because they're very susceptible to fall damage and having their abdomen ruptured. And this one is so small, it's the you can't really tell that well. When I was looking, when it was still dry before I was able to have it malleable, it looked like there might have been a sperm flap there, but I can't tell for certain. So I'm just gonna put this one down here and I'm gonna let it dry. Actually, I should position it so it dries in an easy to see and examine fashion. So I'm gonna lay it out like this and maybe you can see better what I'm talking about. So I've got her laid out like this. I'm just going to say she, but you can see this. And at the back of this, you could really see, well, it's hard to see now, but the book lungs and everything that they breathe out of, they actually breathe out of their butt. You can really see the chelicerae. Those are those specialized mouthpieces attached to those fangs. And one of the reasons that tarantulas are a more archaic prehistoric form of spiders, well, first they came first, and all other spiders come from tarantulas, even though they're technically not classified as true spiders because they only have 2 sets of spinnerets instead of 6, and they also have more primitive fangs. Their fangs go down like this instead of like this, so not as easy to grab onto, not as damage when they bite, but you see this is the head piece right there, but too small for me to be able to examine, so I'm going to show you one of the larger ones I have. So we're going to look at this. This is the first one I ever examined. This is beautiful. This is from a Honduran curly hair, and you see how well, because it's large, everything is still attached. So beautiful. Stay down. So these 2 white bits right here are called book lungs, and that's what the tarantula breathes out of. And then this right here, which I think I was able to see on that small one while it was still dry before it fell apart, but this little flap right here, when you can move that, let me see this little flap right here? You can't move it because it's dry, but when it's wet, you can really pull it back and see that looked like it had a flap, but this is called the sperm flap. So the way that a tarantula mates is really cool, and you kind of have to know this for the context of understanding how to sex them. So I will explain that to you. So the way that they mate is very fascinating. So the females live 20-25 years, and the males typically only live about 5 years, and that's consistent across the different species pretty much, which is incredible because there are so many different species of tarantula. And there's arboreals, fossorials, terrestrials, semi-arboreal. Like, I could get into a lot of things, but we're just going to talk about how they mate because that's pretty consistent for them. So tarantulas, they have their 8 legs, but their legs are not their only limbs. They also have limbs called pedipalps that protrude right around their chelicerae, and the chelicerae are those specialized mouth parts like this. So they have their chelicerae with the fangs attached to them, and then they have their pedipalps, small smaller than their legs that are at their face. And so males at their front legs, not their pedipalps, their actual legs, they have a protrusion that comes out from about here. It's like this, and it's called a tibular hook. And they use that in mating. So that's also something, if you had a full adult, now that exoskeleton right there is a subadult, barely past a spiderling stage. So, hard to tell. They wouldn't have that yet. That would be a fully developed male that would get their tibular hooks. But the tibular hooks are used to disarm the female so that she does not eat him during mating. So what he does is he goes from his burrow and he goes out and he finds a female, and then he does like a little tap dance for you. I kid you not, he does like a little tap for her, and if she likes him back, she'll do a little tap dance for him too with those front feet, and then if that goes well, she will strike a threat pose where she exposes her fangs, almost like as if the same way tarantulas would do if they were like upset and about to attack. Even though an old world species is the one that's more likely to use that as a first line of defense, whereas a new world species, like all the ones that I like to deal around, they mostly use their urticating hairs or their setae. But we could get into, that's a whole different thing. So anyways, they have their tibular hooks, and so the female strikes her threat pose. He takes those hooks on his front legs, and he holds her back. He restrains her. He locks it into those, and he holds her back. And then she's neutralized. The threat is neutralized. And then his pedipalps that I was talking about, the little ones that helps him hold his food while he eats, they also have a job where before he goes out to find the female, he constructs a web known as a sperm web. And basically, he carries that around like a hobo with a sack. You know, like he puts that on his pedipalps. He attaches it to his pedipalps, the thing. And then he goes up to the female. And then she has that little flap I was showing you. And that's the sperm flap. And that's like a little pocket. And he just like takes the sperm web and just like slips it into her little pocket there. And then she can have babies. So a part of the reason there needs to be a restraint there is because once she gets the sperm from him, she has zero use for the man. So if she would like to, she could go ahead and eat him. So he needs to have himself a little more amped up and prepared to avoid that circumstance, even though, 5 years, not as long a lifespan. But I digress. And that little determination, the sex flap, the sperm flap is how you sex them. And, the feats that a male tarantula goes through in order to secure himself a female is incredibly impressive, because what they'll do, and they will travel long and wide, tapping, trying to see if they get responses. They can pick up on the pheromones, and they go out of their burrow, which they do not like to do. They like to stay at their burrow to hunt their food. They go out, and there's a lot of predator risk there. The worst one is going to be the parasitoid activities of the hawk. It's the tarantula hawk, which is a species of wasp. That's, they find tarantulas that are out on the prowl, and so this is almost always going to be a male looking for love, because most other tarantulas like to hide. And the hawk wasp will find a man. He will it'll be a female wasp, will stab him and paralyze the tarantula with the poison, and then she will drag it to her burrow, and she will lay her eggs in/on the tarantula, and then the tarantula will be paralyzed and still alive, and then the larva, unfortunately, will eat the tarantula, which is nightmare fuel. But you know what? He says, I'm a risk it for a biscuit, and he goes out to find love, and I think that's beautiful. And, they go through so much just to find a lady. They risk being eaten by her as well. They risk being eaten alive by baby wasp as well. And, that's, I feel like men could learn something from tarantulas. They go through all this. And the reason they do this is tarantulas don't have access to porn, so